Namaste, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to episode 5 of Exploring Sanatana Dharma series, an initiative by Aham Brahmasmi, a unit of Dakshinamnaya Sri Lalithaditya Peetham Sringeri. In the previous episodes, we have learned a lot about the main religious texts of Sanatana Dharma, their categorization into Shruti and Smriti, as well as gained a lot of knowledge about Ramayana and Mahabharata. In today's session, let's delve into the various Devatas of Hinduism, their origin, as well as background of the principal deities worshipped in Hinduism. For today's episode, we have an eminent young scholar, Shatavadhani Lalithaditya Gannavaram. Born in New York and raised in the US, Lalitaditya ji has an engineering degree in aerospace to his credit. He started writing poetry when he was all of 14. He performed his first Shatavadana at the age of 19. He has also authored several works in stotras. Currently residing in Sringeri, Lalitaditya ji is pursuing his higher Shastric studies under Jagadguru Sri Vidhushekhara Bharati Sannidhanam Sri Sharada Peetham Sringeri. I extend a warm welcome to you, Lalitaditya ji. I think it's a privilege for all of us to have him as the guest speaker for today's session. First things first, ji, what is the concept of God in Hinduism? We call him by several names such as omniscient, all-pervading, ruler of the universe, and the protector of dharma. We also address him as Nirguna Nirakara, that is nameless and formless. So what exactly is the concept of God?
Offering my Ashtanga Pranamas to the Ubhay Jagadgurus. It is a question that I agree we should answer in the get-go. So, first of all, obviously the word God is not native to Sanatana Dharma, but it is a word that we end up using sometimes in English. We would call that as Brahman. That is the all-pervading omniscient force that runs the universe, as you said. And our Shastras have defined this Brahman in two ways. So, two Lakshanas are given. One is called the Swarupa Lakshana, that is to say, defining Brahman as is. And one is called the Tatastha Lakshana, that is to say, like as an observer from a bank would look at a river, defining Brahman based on the Jagat. So there are two different ways that we talk about Brahman. So the first definition, both we can find both in many places in the Upanishads, but we find examples of both in the Taittiriya Upanishad as well. The Swarupa Lakshana is given by Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So Brahman in Swarupa Lakshana is what we call Satchidananda. So pure existence, consciousness, bliss. And as per Advaita, these are not three separate qualities, but consciousness is existence, is bliss. These are not three separate qualities. It is one entity that is spoken about in these three ways. And this is also called the Swarupa. So Brahman does not have bliss, Brahman does not have existence, Brahman does not have consciousness. But Brahman is consciousness, Brahman is existence, Brahman is bliss. So this is a Swarupa Lakshana. Obviously, this is very abstract, and it is not easy to wrap your mind around what this might even entail. So it is for that sake that the Shastras then go on to describe Brahman via the Tatastha Lakshana, that is to say, how does Brahman have a relationship with the Jagat? And that also we get in the same Taittiriya Upanishad, as in Yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisambhishanti. So that entity from which all beings emanate, that due to which they all persist, and that into which they also dissolve. So there also Upanishad uses two words, yat prayanti abhisambhishanti. So abhisambhishanti means enter. Prayanti means it is a Shatranta, so it is a particular construct wherein it means that they dissolve. It is not that they enter the way we would enter a house. It is that they enter as in when you pour water into another bucket of water. How this water enters that. That is why in another place the Upanishad likens the Jiva merging with Brahman to clean water being poured into clean water. So it is that sort of merging again. So that entity that rules the world this way, that is the Tatastha Lakshana of Brahman. So when we say God or Brahman, this is what we mean. So the Nirguna Nirakara is ascribed to the Tatastha Lakshana, but when Brahman is talked about as the creator, sustainer, dissolver, not destroyer, but dissolver of the universe, then we call him Ishwara, and it is there that he becomes Saguna.
As you mentioned, Jay, there are references to made to these divine beings in different methods, like Ishwara, Bhagavan, Brahman. So, are all of these the same? How do they differ? Because I think most people get confused with Ishwara as being Lord Shiva, Brahman being as the Chaturmukha Brahma. So, are they all the same or they are different in terms?
So, yes, we have a wide terminology when talking about this in Sanatana Dharma. We have, as you said, Brahman, then Ishwara, then we have the word Devata, then we have the word Bhagavan. So, and then, you will find some feminine words of these two. So, if we're talking about Devi, Bhagavati, Ishwari. So, these words, while they may loosely refer to the same thing, have very different connotations. So, as you said, Brahman looks very much like the word Brahma, as in the Srishtikarta. The difference is in Sanskrita. When this word is used in the neuter case, in the neuter gender, then it refers to the Brahman, the Parabrahma, what we would call. When it is used in the masculine case, it refers to Chaturmukha Brahma. So, in linguistically at least, we see a distinction there. Because that Parabrahman does not have a gender. It is neither male nor female, so it is easier to leave it in neuter. So, you have Brahma, Brahmani, Brahmani. There is no Bahuvachana for Brahman just because there is only one. But if it were to be, that is how the word would be. And this Brahma, that is how the word will be in the nominative case in singular for Chaturmukha Brahma. It will be the masculine declension of the word. So, first of all, Brahman is that way. Ishwara, the word Ishwara means the controller. So, anyone who controls, Ishte, who controls is Ishwara. So, we call this because, as we said, he is who is in charge of the Srishti Sthiti Laya. He controls all of that. So, he is called Ishwara. He is also called Ishwara because, as we see in Gita, Ishwara Sarvabhutanam Hriddesharjuna Tishtari Brahmayan Sarvabhutani. So, he sits in the hearts of all beings and controls their motions and controls everything that they do. So, it is for that reason also that he is called Ishwara. And as we said, Brahman is Nirguna, Ishwara is Saguna. That is the distinction. So, Brahman is called Brahman when he is just that Satchidananda bereft of the Jagat. Because if you need the Jagat to come about, you need gunas to come. So, Brahman is just that Satchidananda. When that Satchidananda entity takes upon Maya as a Shakti and uses it to create the Jagat and run the Jagat and then do everything that he needs to do with the world, then he is called Ishvara. Which is why Ishvara himself is not controlled by Maya, but he takes upon Maya, which is Trigunatmika, made up of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, to create the Jagat, control the Jagat and perform all the functions that Ishvara would have to do. That is why we say it is Ishvara that gives the karma phala. It is not Brahman that gives the fruits of action, it is Ishvara. So that is the way we use Ishvara. Then we have this word Deva. So these Devas are the conscious principles that run nature. For example, that aspect of consciousness that runs that divine entity, what we call the Adhisthana Devata, right? The Devata of something. So that is what we would call a Deva. For example, for rain, Indra; for the waters, Varuna; for fire, Agni; for wealth, Kubera. These are all, what do you say, smaller manifestations of Brahman that are meant to run certain parts of the cosmos. That way also we get in Taittiriya, Sa Atma, Anga Anyanya Devata. So that Atma is Brahman, he is the whole. The small parts of Brahman as Ishvara that run it is like the main tree and the tendrils of the roots. So the smaller parts, the Angas, are like the Devatas. So Brahman as Indra or through the Upadhi of Indra. So there will be one entity called Indra. Through him, Ishvara will control the rains. Or there will be one entity called Agni. Through him, Ishvara controls fire. There will be one Devata called Kubera. Through him, Ishvara will be controlling wealth. So these are what we mean the Devas. Devatas are also more or less the same thing. There is not much of a difference. But Devata, that word is also used when we talked about Upasana. So when you worship a deity, there we also use the word Devata, but this word Devata is used interchangeably almost. Then we have one more word which is called Bhagavan. So this word Bhagavan is basically referring to Ishvara. So we will use Bhagavan for Ishvara and not for these Devas. Deva will not use the word Bhagavan because the spectrum of what Bhagavan means is much greater. So we see two definitions in the Puranas that are very popular. One is Aishwaryasya samagrasya Viryasya yashasah shreyah jnana vairagyayoschaiva shannam bhaga itingana. So the word Bhagavan means one who has Bhaga. Like you would say Balavan, one who has strength. Like that Bhagavan means one who has Bhaga. Bhaga generally means fortune. That is where we get the word Bhagya. It is the root for the word Bhagya. So the fortunate one, blessed one. Which is why we sometimes will see in texts that we will refer to Rishis also. Maharshis and Rishis will also be referred to as Bhagavan in the sense illustrious one. But when we apply it to a deity or God in this sense, we apply it to Ishwara. Because the word Bhaga refers to a sextet of qualities. 6 qualities are called Bhaga. There is complete Aishwarya, which is a wealth or lordship. And then Virya, energy or strength. Yashas, Shri, which means Shobha or that illustriousness. Shri, I think that is the best way to put it. And then Jnana Vairagya. So Vairagya as well as Jnana. Someone who has all of these in a complete way. So it is not like it is a lower degree of strength or a lower degree of knowledge. All strength is his, all knowledge is his, all Shobha is his. That set of qualities is called Bhaga. Someone that has that is Bhagavan. So here also this is referring to Ishvara only. There is one more definition of Bhagavan, kind of we said the Jnana. So taking that into account, we have Utpattincha Vinashancha Bhutanam Agatim Gatim Vetti Vidyam Avidyancha Savachya Bhagavaniti. So he who knows how and when all the beings should come into being, all creatures should come into being and also dissolve. Utpattincha Vinashancha Bhutanam Agatim Gatim, their goings and comings. And then Vetti Vidyam Avidyancha. So Vidya is proper Jnana. Avidya refers to here all Logika forms of Jnana. So that is to say all these, anything that is not Brahma Jnana, any form of knowledge that is not Brahma Jnana, he knows all of that as well. He knows everything. So someone who knows all of this is called Bhagavan. So in this sense, we see it is not just Indra or Agni or Varuna, but this is also still referring to Ishvara. That being who taking upon Maya runs this Jagat. So Mayadhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam, Bhagavan says in Gita. So it is Bhagavan who gives rise to this entire Jagat, this Charachara Jagat, taking upon Prakriti. So by Bhagavan's order, it is Prakriti that gives rise to this. So Bhagavan through Prakriti gives rise to this. So there we will call him Bhagavan, Ishvara. Paramatma will also refer to this only. Paramatma, we use the word Paramatma also. Paramatma also will refer to Ishvara. Loosely it can refer to that Nirguna Brahman. But the important thing to remember is when you talk about this Nirguna Brahman, it is independent of the Jagat. So he will never be Nirguna if the Jagat is still there. Because the Jagat requires him to act as Saguna. But the difference is that those gunas don't touch Brahman. That is the difference. So, he works through the gunas, but the gunas don't touch him. He is Nirguna. When the Jagat is not there, that is during Pralaya times, for example, or after a Jnani gets Jnana and then leaves his body. Right? So, in those situations where there is no connection to the Jagat at all, he will be called that Nirguna Brahman. As long as the Jagat is there, he will act as though Saguna. And when we say he is Saguna, it does not mean that he has Gunas. It means he is using Maya, which is Saguna. He has taken upon Maya as his vessel, as his instrument, and that is Saguna. So that is how we understand the terminology that pertains to God. I prefer to stay away from God just because the Judeo-Christian underpinnings of the word kind of remind us of someone sitting in the sky dealing out judgment, which for them may be the case, but that is not at all the case for us. So that is I prefer to stick to either Ishvara or Bhagavan or Paramatma when we talk about Vedanta or Indic concepts. It is better to stick to this terminology.
Great. So, Lalaji, as you mentioned, Ishvara is one, God is one. Then why do we have to worship multiple deities in Hinduism? Is it that each deity grants a particular kind of wish? And if that is true, then what is the role of karma as it plays in?
So, as we said, Ishvara expresses himself in many forms. So, as we said, Brahman itself being Nirguna, So when it becomes Saguna, it has the freedom to express itself in any form that it wants. If you say Brahman is Saguna, then it is stuck to whatever name and form it has then. But as per Advaita, as per the teachings of Sanatana Dharma, Brahman is Nirguna, which means that when it expresses itself as Ishwara, it is free to choose any form it wants. So it can express itself as Devi, it can express itself as Shiva, it can express itself as Ganesha, it can express itself as Vishnu, it can express itself as Surya. So that freedom is there. So it is one Ishwara that expresses himself in different names and forms. That does not mean that there is a difference in the entity itself. So it is akin to give this example of, you are an employee at work, you come home, you are a husband to your wife and a father to your children. So the roles and the names of a husband and a father and an employee and a son are different. But depending on what it is that you are doing, the name will change. The same entity, when serving his parents, will be a son. When interacting with his wife, will be a husband. When interacting with his children, will be a son. When interacting with his employer, will be an employee. So the name is changing, but the entity does not. And his form may also change. For example, when he goes to work, he may put on some suit and tie. When he got married, the way he looks will be different when he interacts with his wife. When he plays with his children, he may be wearing something else. So in that same way, how the name and the form change, but the entity is the same. That is the same thing that goes for Ishvara. And so this is one thing, that when Ishvara wants to carry out different tasks, he will assume different names and forms. To create, he will become Brahma. To sustain, he will become Vishnu. To dissolve, he will act as Shiva. To give light to this world, he will act as Surya in that way. And there is one more reason that Ishvara has become Saguna. Upasakanam karyartham brahmano rupakalpana. So it is not possible for us to meditate straight away on something that is Nirguna. So we need something that is called an alamba. You need some base, or you need some central starting point upon which you can then progress in your sadhana. So because we cannot meditate on the Nirguna Ishvara, he needs to give us some Saguna form that we can then use to start our worship. But we should also not end up worshipping something that is not Ishvara. So we need to worship Ishvara, but we cannot worship him as Nirguna. So he has given us his own Saguna form to worship. And that is why, to know those forms also, we have the Shastras. So it is not like we can just pick anything that we want. There are certain forms that Ishvara has revealed to the Maharshis, and that Maharshis have seen through their tapas and their jnana. And those forms of Ishvara are given to us so that we may better worship him. As to why there are so many, when we talk about Ishvara doing various things, why there are so many is because there are various tasks. So because for each task a different form will be more appropriate, Ishvara takes upon those forms. In this sense, in the sense that Ishvara takes upon various forms to make it conducive to us to meditate upon him, it is because there are so many different types of people who are trying to perform sadhana and trying to meditate, that different forms may speak to different people. Right? Some people will like Rama, some people will like Krishna, some people will like Shiva, some people will like Devi. So it is to cater to the various needs of different people that Ishvara takes upon these various forms. So it is for that reason that we are given that freedom to choose which form of Ishvara that we wish to worship. So that is why the Vartikakara, Sureshwaracharya, has one shloka. He says, Yaya yaya bhavet pumsam yutpattif pratyagatmani tasaiva prakriyeha syat sadhvi sachana vasthita. So whatever method it is that you can use to get Brahmajnana, Yaya Prakriya, whatever method it is, Pumsam Pratyagatmani Vitpatir Bhavet. However it is that you can get Jnana, that Jiva Brahmaikya Jnana, however, whatever method it is that works for each person, they are free to use that method, because Sacha Anavasthita, that Prakriya, that method of getting Brahmajnana is Anavasthita. It is not mandated that this is the only deity, the only way to do it, the only form. There is no mandate like that. So this goes for all the various types of upasanas that are given in the Upanishads as well. It is not like one form of upasana, but it goes just as well for the worship of Ishvara. There is no mandate on which form that you must worship. You are free to choose whichever one it is. And it is to give us this freedom, and it is to allow this wide variety of people in this world that freedom in, or that facility in pursuing that Brahmajnana through dhyana and japa and all of that, that Ishvara reveals himself in various forms to the Maharshis, that the Maharshis then pass down to us. So it is one Ishvara who takes upon many names and forms. And then you had also mentioned that the word Ishvara is used to refer to Shiva, as well as this impersonal entity that we talked about. So honestly, Shiva is called Ishvara because he controls. I mean, you see, Shiva is not Paramatma. Shiva is also Paramatma. You can ask the same question as we say Vishnu. Vishnu means he who pervades. So this same Brahman or Ishvara pervades the entire universe. So then why is Vishnu called Vishnu? Because it is that Ishvara who pervades the universe that expresses itself as Vishnu. In the same way that Ishvara, because he controls the universe, he expresses himself as Shiva, which is why he is called Shiva. It is not like Shiva is not Sarva Vyapaka and Vishnu is not the controller. So Ishvara can very well be used for Vishnu, and the word Vishnu can very well be used to apply to Shiva. And that is why in their respective Sahasranamas also we say the same thing. The name Vishnu, Jagadvyapi, Jagadguru, we get in the Shiva Ashtatra Shatanam. The Jagadvyapi is what Vishnu means. In the same Vishnu Sahasranama, we get Sarva, Sharva, Shivasthano. These are all names of Shiva. Sharva, Shivasthano are words that refer primarily to Shiva. We get those same names in the Vishnu Sahasranama. So it is not like Vishnu is different and Shiva is different, and these same names will just get in Strilinga and Lalita Sahasranama. So, if we say sometimes in cases like this, in the case of Brahma, it was just that it is a grammatical difference. But honestly, there also, so Briha Vistare, Brihatvad Brahma ityachyate. So that which is large, that which is big is called Brahma. So it is because Brahman is that massive and such a large concept that it is called Brahman. So in the same way here also, it is because Paramatma is Ishvara that Paramatma expressed as Shiva is called Ishvara. It is because Paramatma is Sarva Vyapaka that Paramatma expressing himself as Vishnu is called Vishnu. So it is a very interesting point that all the names of the deities that we have, you can give two meanings to each name. You can give one name, one meaning that is specific to that form, and there will indubitably be a meaning that will refer to the impersonal Nirguna Brahman, or also to that impersonal Ishvara that does not yet have a name and form. Which is why Bhagavad Pada, when writing the Bhashya for the Nrisimha Tapaniya Upanishad, the Purva Bhaga Bhashya was written by Bhagavad Pada, Uttara Bhaga was written by Vidyaranya Mahaswami. In that, Bhagavad Pada writes clearly that the Nrisimha Tapaniya Upanishad discusses Brahman as Nrisimha. So there, Bhagavad Pada writes clearly that the word Nrisimha refers primarily to the Nirguna Paramatma or Ishvara, and only secondarily to any Devata that has the face of a lion and the body of a man. So, for example, there, the word Nr means the Jiva. The word Simha comes from the word Hinasti, that which tears apart or rips or destroys. So, that entity that removes the Ajnana of the Jiva and gives him Jnana is called Nrisimha. So, now we see this is not referring to a Devata that has the face of a lion. This goes for Ishvara as the primordial Guru. Or as you said, right? Vetti Vidyama Vidyancha. He has that jnana and he also gives that jnana. So in that sense, or there is one more meaning given where Nrishabdena Uchyate, this is in a different Samhita, but Nrisimhena Uchyate Jivaha Simha Shabdena Cha Swaraha Tayor Aikyam Shruti Proktam Nrisimha iti Shabdyate. The word Nr refers to the Jiva. Simha means Shrestha, that is to say Ishvara. So Nrisimha means it is the Aikya of the two. So Nr means Jiva, Simha means Ishvara. So the Jiva Brahma Aikya is Nrisimha. So when we say Nrisimha, you mean that entity that expresses itself both as the Jiva and as Ishvara. So now no longer does the word Nrisimha refer to a lion-faced deity, but it refers first and foremost to that Chaitanya that expresses itself as Ishvara and as the Jiva. So in that sense, when we say then why does Ishvara also mean Shiva? It is because Shiva is Ishvara. It is because Shiva is Paramatma. So in this way, the names of all the deities that we have also, we can understand in this way. All the names will first mean Paramatma and secondarily refer to the Saguna form. So even when we see a name that maybe looks like it refers exclusively to the Saguna form, and there is nothing wrong in saying those things. For example, Chandrasekhara. The word Chandrasekhara refers to he who has the moon on his crest. So obviously this primarily refers to the Saguna form of Shiva. But there will always be a Nirguna underpinning to this also. So we see in the Purana that when Chandra comes out of the Kshirasagara, Tasminstu Mathite Jataha Punassomo Mahipate Yoso Kshetrajna Sangyo Vai Dehesmin Purushaparaha. So Chandra, who is the embodiment of the Jiva, the Kshetrajna within this body, came. And then in Tantra, they then refer to this statement and explain that the Chandrasekhara, so he holds the moon on his crest. The moon means the Jiva. So Shiva is that Ishwara who holds all the Jivas in place, who sustains all those Jivas. So while Chandrasekhara may predominantly refer to a deity bearing the moon on his crest, the Antarartha that we would call, right, the underpinning of this is that he bears all the Jivas, he sustains all the Jivas. So generally the names, so this Chandrasekhara is a description of Shiva, it is a Visheshana. But those names that we ascribe to the Devatas will primarily refer to that impersonal Paramatma and only secondarily to a form of that Paramatma. And even those names that refer to a form of the Paramatma, 90% of the time, we will see that there will be some undercurrent, some philosophical undercurrent that will lead us back to that Nirguna Paramatma. So that is how we can understand the names of Paramatma.
Earlier you mentioned that Ishwara is the giver of the karma phala. And karma, as we all know, is a law of karma. What you sow is what you reap. Similarly, there are laws of physics, there are rules of the universe that operate on their own. For example, we all know on a daily basis the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. We know that the river flows on its own. So there is nobody operating these things because they do their work on their own. So a very popular question that I get asked by youngsters, especially children, is why do we need a god that is upheld in Hinduism? Why do we need a god and why do we need to worship him when everything else in the universe is working on its own?
It is this seems like a question that we would get today, but this is a question that the Buddha has asked 1200 years ago, 1500 years ago. So this is by no means a new question to us, and our Shastras have given an answer. The first thing is, first of all, you need a cause. So, okay, fine, there is no one sitting inside the river pushing the water forward, that is fine. But the universe needs a cause, right? There is no effect without a cause. Right? There is no cloth without threads, there is no mud without, there is no pot without mud. In this way, everything needs a cause. So, how far back can you trace the cause and effect cycle? So, let us say there is a cloth. The cloth came from thread. The thread came from some plant fiber. That fiber comes from the plant. The plant comes from some seed. The seed comes from something else. The seed comes from that confluence of organic material and some mud and sunlight and water. So if you keep, then where did that come from? Then you will go back to, as per science, you will go back to atoms. Where did matter come from? Even science has to go back to some cause. So it is just that if it is just a material cause, we will trace that back to the singularity of the Big Bang. So that singular point within which all matter was contained. But this only accounts for one part of the universe. Right? So the universe to us is split into Jada and Chetana, sentient and insentient. So you can explain the sentient part, the insentient part with, as we said, going back to that. How do you explain the sentient part? What is the origin for the consciousness that you see? So there is something that enlivens the body. That is what we call consciousness. What is the root cause for that? From where did it come? So all of these need, the conscious aspect of the universe has to have some root cause. And then, rather than saying that the material cause of the universe is one and the conscious root of the universe is one, just say that it's the same thing. So then you have a singular cause for the universe. That is what we call Ishwara. And there is one more thing, that there are two types of causes, karanas that we have. One is called the Upadana Karana, one is called the Nimitta Karana. That is to say, one is the material cause and the efficient cause. So if we take the pot, for example, the favorite example of philosophers in India, right, the material cause of the pot is the mud. It is the raw material that the pot is made out of. The efficient cause is the potter. That is what we call the intelligent cause. Right? There has to be someone that brings it about. So, in that sense, for the Jagat also, the Nimitta Karana and Upadana Karana are both Ishwara. And the example that our Shastras give is Yathornarabhis Srirate Grunhate Cha. As a spider creates its web and then swallows its web again. So the spider is both the efficient cause and the material cause. So the spider is what decides how the web comes out. It is the spider's will that the web come out. And the web is also coming out of the spider itself. The web is not some external thing, it is the spider itself. And that is what we call, the material cause is what we call Prakriti. So it is Ishwara's Shakti, right? The Shakti is not separate from the Shakta. Bhagavad Gita writes this in the Gita Bhashya also. You cannot separate the Shakti from the owner of that Shakti, right? You cannot separate fire from its ability to burn, right? You cannot separate water from its wetness. So in the same way, you cannot separate Ishwara from his Prakriti. Because as I said, right, what is Ishwara? It is Brahman when he takes upon Prakriti to create. So when Ishwara is there, Prakriti is for better or worse, part of what Ishwara is. So Ishwara through Prakriti will become the material cause, and Ishwara as just the conscious part, the Satchidananda part, that is the sentient part, is the intelligent cause. So the material cause is Prakriti. What is Prakriti? The material unit. That is what we trace the singularity back to. So Prakriti is not Chetana. Prakriti is Jada. Right? Prakriti is not the sentient part. So when you trace the Jada universe back to its root cause, that is what we call Prakriti. That is what we call Moola Prakriti. Right? Prakriti, that is the root. So we do not ascribe sentience to that. But there needs to be something sentient that decides how this Prakriti manifests. And also that is the root for the Chaitanya that we see in the world. Right? As we said in the beginning, the world has sentient and insentient components. The root of all the insentient components we trace back to that Moola Prakriti, that is Ishwara's Shakti. And the sentient components of the universe we trace back to the singular cause of the Chaitanya of Ishwara. So in this way, to explain the sentient part of the universe, you have to have an Ishvara. And that too, if you say that the world has intelligent design, that is one thing, right? There also you need an Ishvara. And also, when we say that Prakriti has worked in this way, we don't need an Ishvara. It is very simple for us. We say that Ishvara's will is that Prakriti works this way. So for example, a tree could be any which way. Why is it that trees have evolved this way? It is Ishvara's will that it go this way. Why did Ishvara will it that way? That is the next question, right? Ishvara could have willed it any which way. If we say Sarvajna and Sarvashakta, Ishvara can make the universe into any which way he wants. So there, we get that Ishvara is not just the maker of this universe, but he is also the karma phala pradha. Right? So as you said, karma is a law, right? If the law is whatever you do is what you get, then what is the need for Ishvara? Correct. Whatever you do is what you get. But who decides how and when you get it? So that how and when is arranged by Ishvara. So for example, you have some karma phala to be experienced. I also have some karma phala. If we interact in some way, then both of our karma phalas will be experienced in some way or the other. So who decides when we meet, how we meet, where we meet, whether we meet or not? So that confluence of all the jivas karmas is arranged by Ishvara because, as you said in the description of Bhagavan, right? Utpattim pralayancheva bhutanam agatim gatim. He knows all of that. It is because he knows all of that that he arranges all of that. And then he lets the play unfold. So it is, the natural working of the universe is by no means contradictory to Ishvara working the universe. Right? That is why for us, we as followers of Sanatana Dharma, we have no quarrel with evolution. Because what does evolution say? The gene pool, various genes express themselves, and whatever is conducive to the environment is the gene that gets passed on, because those individuals with the genes that are conducive to their environment, those are the individuals that thrive, right? So those are the genes that get passed on. Over course of time, those genes become, the dominant gene will become more expressed, the regressive gene will be less expressed. Due to DNA combination, sometimes there will be, mutations that will give rise to now more variety, right? And then from those again, then you pick and choose, the environment will decide what is most conducive. So this is how evolution happens. Nowhere is this. So we will just say, yes, this is exactly how new species or species go extinct and new species come into play. The only question is who decides which mutates, who decides which environment that these genes get expressed in, who has willed that these beings get expressed in this way. And one more thing is, we say acts of happenstance. For example, the dinosaurs went extinct because some asteroid hit the Earth. Why did that asteroid hit the Earth? Then the dinosaurs had been on the Earth for hundreds of millions of years. We are sitting here as humans. We cannot comprehend the scale of time that the dinosaurs, were 65 million years ago. The last dinosaur walked the Earth, and they were on this Earth for hundreds of millions of years before that. Compared to the length of the duration of the human species, that is, this is peanuts compared to that. Right, so even when we talk about cosmic or at least planetary events of that nature, we cannot say that it is just human design or something. And when we say that it is just the universe that works, yes, the universe works because Ishwara wills it that way. The Ishwara puts the laws of the natural universe into play and allows it to run its course, and from behind guides its workings through the natural laws. So Ishvara is by no means contradictory to the universe working in the way that it does. But we do need to say there is an Ishvara because, why does the universe work this way is number one. And also you have to postulate some cause. So both for the material cause, you have to decide why it expresses that way, why Prakriti expresses that way. For the sentient cause, you have to have some root of consciousness as well. So you have to accept Ishvara in that sense.
That was a brilliant answer, Lalithaditya. Thank you. It's really nice to see the confluence of science and philosophy in Sanatana Dharma. Lalitji, earlier you mentioned that Ishvara takes up multiple forms to carry out multiple tasks. So, what is the basis of these forms?
Yeah, so as I said, the forms that Ishvara expresses himself in are the forms that we worship in Sanatana Dharma. We do not worship anything outside of that set. So, and the reason also we talked about, because Ishvara has decided that it is the upasana of these forms that is conducive to Brahmajnana and Vedanta sadhana, due to what they represent, or also when we talk about mantras and all, like the properties of those mantras and all, that is all the reason for Ishvara expressing himself in those particular forms. So that is why the worship in Sanatana Dharma is limited to those forms in which Ishvara expresses himself in. These are found in of course, in the Shastras, as anything else is. So obviously, in the Vedas, we have many Devatas. Obviously, as you said, the Devatas of nature, such as Indra, Agni, all of these Devatas. Beside all the Devatas that are in vogue, such as Devi, Shiva, Vishnu, these are all found in the Veda. Obviously, the stories may be not as fleshed out, but there are still those Vedas. So, Idam Vishnu Vichakrame Tredha Nidadhe Padam. Vishnu doing Vikrama stepped 3 times. So, this is the root for the later Trivikrama story of Vamana. In the same way, we get the Nrisimha Gayatri in the Aranyaka Bhaga of Vajranahaya Vidmahe Tikshna Dabdishtaya Dhimahe Anno Narasigimha Prachodayat. So we get the reference to Nrisimha also in the Aranyaka Bhaga of the Yajurveda. In the same way, we get, we have all these epithets of Vishnu that we see there. Narayana, the word Vishnu, Narayana, there are many such names that we find of Vishnu. Same thing goes for Shiva, who in Rudra, in the Veda, you will say that this mantra has a Devata. There, the name of the Devata will be written as Rudra, who is not different from Shiva. Because we see in Rudra there are so many different references which make it clear that the Rudra of the Vedas is no different from the Rudra of the Puranas. So we see that the Purana is there, Nilakantha is there. Then we say Nilalohita, that also comes. So this Nilalohita, there are so many stories in the Puranas that show why Shiva is Nilalohita. One expression is that Shiva is reddish in color. In some forms of Shiva are reddish in color. Devi is Kali. So she is dark in color. So the red half and the dark half are the Nila Lohita. So like this there are many and then there are so many. We see the third Anuvaka of the Rudra, Namasahamana Inivyadana. There, the whole Anuvaka in itself, the Adhidevata for that Anuvaka that Sayana Acharya has written in the Bhashya there is the Kirata Murti, the Adi Kirata, Shiva as the primordial hunter. So we see not only in Mantra Shastra, but we also see him come in Mahabharata. That is the form that Shiva takes to give Arjuna, to test Arjuna and then give him Pashupata. So we see that in Veda itself, many forms are given. Besides that, we have Mantra Shastra and Puranas. So in Mantra Shastra are where all the tantric mantras. So we don't, Tantra has gotten a negative connotation these days. We think of these black magic and skulls and whatnot. But Tantra just refers to Mantra Shastra, wherein the the mantras of various devatas are given. That shastra is called Tantra Shastra, that is called Mantra Shastra. They are not two different things. So there certain mantras are given. So before we talk about the forms, we have to talk about what a mantra is. So the mantra is the sonic manifestation of Ishvara. So just as when Ishvara manifests as Shiva, we say he takes a form with 3 eyes and Chandrarekha and Jata Juta and whatnot. He manifests as Vishnu. He takes the form of 4 hands, the Pitambara, dark in color and all of that. That is when Ishvara manifests in a corporeal form. The mantra is Ishvara manifesting in a sonic form. So, and that too, the equivalent is that Nirguna Ishvara, that Paramatma, manifests as Shiva, Vishnu, Ganesha. Omkara, the sound Omkara, manifests as the Shiva mantra, Vishnu mantra, Devi mantra. That is the corresponding analogy. In the sense that if it is the entity manifests as an entity. When the entity is shown as a sound, the sound of Omkara, it is that Omkara, that Omkara is Tasya Vachaka Pranavaha, means Omkara is the sound that denotes that Paramatma, that Nirguna Ishvara. So, just as that Nirguna Ishvara manifests himself into various forms, that Nirguna Omkara, or that sound Omkara, manifests itself into various mantras. So, these are the sonic forms of the Devata. So, if we say Rama mantra, it is not like this is some mantra that is used to worship Rama. Ishvara has manifested himself as Rama, and Ishvara, the Omkara, has manifested itself as the Rama mantra. So the mantra is no different from the Devata. The mantra is the sonic manifestation of the Devata. Just as the Salagrama is one manifestation of Vishnu, the limbs, the form of Vishnu with the hands and the feet is one manifestation of Vishnu. In the same way, the mantra will also be the manifestation of the Devata itself. So that the form that corresponds to that sound is what we mean when we say that a Devata has a form. So it is those forms that are given to us in Mantra Shastra, in the Dhyana Shlokas to each mantra. So that is why when we do Japa of a mantra also, we have to tell the Dhyana Shloka before we do the mantra. So the mantra is the Devata. What does the Devata look like? The sonic form of the sonic expression of the Devata is this. But if I want to imagine that Devata in a corporeal form, what is that form? That is the Dhyana Shloka of that mantra. That is why we have that practice of you do Anganyasa, Karanyasa, then Dhyana Shloka, then you do Japa of the mantra. So in Mantra Shastra, those forms are given, and also in the Puranas. So in the reason why Vyasa Maharshi wrote the Puranas is to give us examples of Dharma and Adharma, to illustrate stories, as well as to give us various forms of this Devata. So, for example, there are so many forms of Shiva in stories that we find in the Puranas. So, you have, for example, Nataraja, you have Ardhanarishwara, you have Tripurasura Samharaka, you have the Adikirata, then you have the Mrityunjaya form. So, there are so many. You have the form of Shiva that still has the Brahmakapala in his hand. So, there are so many forms of Shiva that are given in the Puranas. Obviously, so as you said, some people like to worship the form of Shiva more than the form of Vishnu. Even within Shiva, there will be people who have an affinity to dance will be more obviously drawn to Nataraja, something like that. So it is to give us that variety. In Vishnu, obviously we have the Avataras and beyond that also. Then in Devi, there are so many forms of Devi besides just the Lakshmi, Parvati, the Saraswati, Lakshmi, Parvati. Besides just that trifecta, we have so many forms of Devi. Within Ganapati, there are so many forms, right? So we see all of those there. And one beautiful thing is, if we ever get a doubt about whether this is a Devata that we should be worshipping or not, if it does not tally with Purana or Mantra Shastra, the Devatas you see in the Mantra Shastra are the Devatas you will see in the Puranas. The Devatas you see in the Puranas are the forms of Ishvara that you will see in the Mantra Shastra. It is an exact, 1-to-1 ratio. In the sense that you will not find any extraneous. It's not like there will be Devatas in Mantra Shastra that you will not see in Purana. There will not be any manifestations of Ishvara in the Puranas that you will not find in Mantra Shastra. So if you find some form that is not there in these, it means that is not a form of Ishvara that we worship in Sanatana Dharma. So that is something to keep in mind when we look at that. There is also one more interesting thing to look at, is this Shilpa Shastra. So in Shilpa Shastra, we have iconography of various deities. So those two are drawn from either Mantra Shastra or Purana or something like that. So when we look at where we find these forms, so we find them in the Puranas, we find them in Mantra Shastra as the Dhyana Shlokas of those mantras, and we find their iconography in the Shilpa Shastra. And there are some Puranas that talk about the iconography too. So many Shilpa Shastras draw from the Agni Purana. So in the Agni Purana, there are entire adhyayas that talk about how certain devatas should be sculpted. So, these all overlap. In Purana, you will find mantras. So it is not like Mantra Shastra is just limited. So in Devi Bhagavata, there are some Saraswati mantras and things like that. So in Bhagavata, there are some Mala mantras that are given in Bhagavata in the 5th skandha and in the 5th skandha and etc. So if we look at these three, the Mantra Shastra, Purana and Shilpa Shastra, these give us the forms of Ishwara that are worshipped in Sanatana Dharma. Any form that is not given here does not belong to Sanatana Dharma. That is just generally how we can tell if something is in line with Sanatana Dharma or not.
So, Lalitaditya ji, you mentioned about the worship of the various forms of Ishvara. What about the worship of Guru? As you know, we worship Guru as an embodiment of the Trimurtis. Is that also prescribed somewhere? And further, there are people who consider Guru as an individual, as a spiritual mentor or a guide. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So, first of all, to call back to what I said in the last question, right? So, what tells us what an upasya form of Ishvara is whether it is told in the Dharma Shastra, Mantra Shastra, Purana, and Shilpa Shastra. The worship of Guru as a Devata is there for us in both Mantra Shastra and the Puranas. So it is very much, a practice of Sanatana Dharma. The second thing is that the Guru Devata is not the individual. The Guru Devata is not the physical form, but that Devata expresses itself through the individual. So if at all we offer respects to an individual, it is revering what that Guru Devata has done through that individual or as that individual. It is not to that particular human per se. So, for example, we pay respects to Bhagavad Pada. So, when Bhagavad Pada is the embodiment of Paramashiva is one thing. If you look at it just as a Guru, it is that Guru Devata as Bhagavad Pada has done many, anugrahas to the world. So we pay respect to the Guru Devata. See, we cannot just pay respect to the Guru Devata in the air. So we pay respect to Bhagavad Pada because it is as Bhagavad Pada that the Guru Devata has done anugraha. So it is true that Bhagavad Pada is the manifestation of that Guru Devata that we pay our respects. And which is why there is a Guru Paduka mantra also that is given as part of certain Anushtanas. In Sri Vidya it is very common. So that Guru Paduka mantra or that Guru mantra, one that is very commonly told is Gun Guru Bhyo Namaha. So this is a Guru mantra that is common to all Gurus. That is why in these mantras, you will not see that there will be a name of an individual. In the worship of the Guru or in Upasana of the Guru, there will not be a specific name mentioned. It will just be the Guru because the Guru is the Devata. That Guru may manifest it, does manifest itself through individuals, but what we worship is that Guru Devata. So, so the worship of the Guru is very much, not just there in Sanatana Dharma, but it is mandated. So earlier, as I said, right, there is no difference between the Devata and the mantra. Right, the mantra is just the sonic manifestation, the Devata is the physical manifestation. The Shastra also tells us, adds one more thing to this, that the Guru, there is no difference between the Devata, the mantra and the Guru. So the mantra, the Adhidevata of that mantra and the Guru that gives you the mantra, these three are not three separate entities. These three are one and the same. So the sonic manifestation, the physical manifestation, and the manifestation that you have the fortune to interact with. Right. So it is very much a fortune that we are mandated to worship the Guru in such a way. Which is why we have, of course, the Guru Purnima, the Vyasa Purnima every year in Ashada Purnima. And that is why we see the way that the puja is conducted on that day, even here in Sringeri. As we all know, that day is a very important day in the year in Sringeri. It marks the day that the Jagadguru start their Chaturmasya Vrata. And on that day, an elaborate Guru Puja is done. And it is done in certain rounds, kind of. So there is a Dakshinamurti Puja, then Krishna as Jagadguru, as the Gitopadeshta. So Krishna is worshipped. Then there is a Vyasa Puja. Then there is a Puja for Shankara Bhagavad Pada. and then it moves on to the Purvacharyas of the Pitha. So in that sense, we see that if this entire parampara is being worshipped as a guru, so it means that Krishna, Vyasa, Shankaracharya, the previous Jagadgurus of this Pitha, the same Guru Puja is being done to all of them. So it means that it is the same Guru Devata that is being worshipped, albeit in different manifestations. So when we say that we worship the Guru, it is this Guru Devata. And the Guru Devata has these manifestations. So we need to kind of keep in mind that the Guru is a Devata, not an individual.
As we just heard from you about the avatars of Lord Vishnu, we only get to hear about the Dashavatara of Lord Vishnu. Aren't there any other avatars of the other gods, such as Shiva, Devi, Ganesha? What is an avatara? We can probably start from there.
Yeah. So an avatara is actually very simple. The word avatara means to literally climb down. Avatarati means to climb down. So what does it mean when we say Ishwara climbs down? He was in a form that is inaccessible. He takes upon a form that is accessible. Those forms that interact with us are avatars. We can also take it one more sense in that the Nirguna Paramatma, which we have said before, he is not he is like a higher level. Saguna is like a step down because it is easier for us to come to. So that is one thing. But for example, when you talk about Vishnu, it is that Saguna Ishwara that is taking upon other forms. So in this sense, it is more so that Vishnu in Vaikuntha is not ready for interaction, is not readily available for interaction for people like us. Those forms that people can interact with are called avatars, those which have literally come down to interact with us. So, and as you said, Vishnu's avatars are popular because the main purpose of an avatara is, as we know in Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So the purpose of an avatara is to protect the virtuous, punish the wicked, and both of these, why is Bhagavan doing this? The main reason is dharma samsthapanarthaya, to make sure that dharma is safe. So for the sake of protecting dharma, he will protect the virtuous and punish the wicked. So this protecting dharma is what we call sthiti. And as we all know, the form that Ishwara takes to carry out the duties of sthiti is Vishnu. Which is why Vishnu's avatars are the most popular, and the stories are also, very interesting, obviously, right? Like that there will never be a story, not in Indian literature, but there will never be another story in the whole of this world's literature that that compares to that of the Ramayana. There will never be another story like that. Even as a story, it is so profound and beautiful that it grabs you. It grabs your attention. So those kinds of stories you will find in avatars of Vishnu. Other devatas also obviously will have avatars. It is just that it will be for different reasons. So in the Shiva Purana, we find many avatars of Shiva. Veerabhadra is an avatar of Shiva, and most popular Hanuman. Hanuman is an Amshavatara of Rudra. And we get all of these different avatars in the Shiva Purana. So it is not like other devatas don't have avatars. It is just that Vishnu's avatars are the most prolific because the purpose of an avatar is dharma samsthapana, which is performing sthiti, which falls under the purview of Ishwara as Vishnu. So that duty falls to Vishnu. But we say that Shiva also takes upon certain forms. Their jobs can be different. For example, Veerabhadra was to put Daksha in his place. Hanuman is to do help for Ramakarya. And in other cases, Dakshinamurti is an avatar of Shiva. As in, the purpose of that avatar is to give knowledge. And then there is one more, as a mendicant, Shiva comes as a bhikshu to the rishis in the Dwarukavana. This is a big story in Skanda Purana, it comes in other things as well. These rishis in Dwarukavana are completely karmatas. They don't care about jnana, they deny jnana. They are only karma all the time. So to teach them properly, Shiva takes upon the form of a very handsome bhikshu, and one leela happens there with them. So there are many forms of Shiva. See, here also this form is meant to give jnana. It is meant to open their eyes to the fact that it is not karma that gives you moksha, but jnana that gives you moksha. So we have many forms of Shiva as well. And see, Devi is Narayana Sahodari. So the duties that Vishnu carries out, we see Devi also does in many places. So some Rakshasa Samharas, it is Devi that does it. So Mahishasura, Rakta Bija, Shumbha Nishubha. That is the story of Chandi Saptashati, that Devi Mahatmya. So we see in many places that Devi also has so many avatars. And in Chandi Saptashati, she says, we see that Devi says in the Chandi Saptashati itself, she says, Itham yada yada pida danavotha bhavishyate tada tadavatiryaaham karishyam yari sankshayam. So she tells the Devatas, in this same way, whenever it is that Rakshasas torment you all, in the same way, tada tada, the root also is avatirya, which means avatarang kritva. Having taken upon an avatara, I will come and destroy the your enemies. And then there itself she talks about some things. When she kills the Rakshasa named Durgama, she will be called Durga. When this world will be afflicted by a drought and a lack of crops, she will come as Shakambhari, bearing all the the seeds for a new era of vegetation and all of that. So we see that other devatas have these avatars. For Ganesha, there are different avatars. So Heramba is an avatara, Vakratunda is an avatara, Mayuradhvaja Ganapati is an avatara. So, other devatas have avatars, usually for Daitya Samhara only. But Vishnu is the most popular because he is in charge of Sthiti. So, Ishwara as Vishnu will be in charge of Sthiti. And one more thing is, you had mentioned the Dashavataras. These Dashavataras are just the 10 most popular. In the Srimad Bhagavata Purana, you will see 24 different forms. And in those you will have not just the usual 10, Hayagriva, Vyasa Maharshi. Then there are different types of avatars called Amsha Avataras, Avesha Avataras. So actually, since you had asked in the beginning what an Avatara is, it is best that we talk about the classifications. So these various types of avatars, that is the Amsha, Avesha, Kala and Purana. The Shastra itself gives us, which avatars can be taken as examples of these types of manifestations. So, Brahmadaya Smrita Amshaha. So, as we said earlier, the Devatas are all working with the fragments of Paramatma's Shakti. So, Brahma, Indra, these Devatas are all Amshavataras. Then, Amshamshastu Marichayaha. These other Devatas like the Prajapatis and all, they are all Amshamsha. They do not need as much of that Shakti from Bhagavan as the Devatas need, but still some fraction of Bhagavan's Shakti is working through them. So the Marichya, Prajapatis, they are all the Amshamshas. They are the Amshamshas. Then Kala Kapila Kurmadhyaha. The Kalavataras are where there are fractions of Bhagavan. It is not Bhagavan's full manifestation, but part of him manifests that way and stays that way. For example, Kapila Maharshi in Bhagavata, he does Upadesha to Devahuti. In the same way, the Kurma Avatara, the Matsya Avatara. As long as Kurma stayed, that form was there of Kurma, it was Bhagavan's a portion of Bhagavan himself. So it is a greater portion. So actually, these kalas, we say that Vishnu has, Paramatma has 16 kalas. In Upanishad also, Shodasha Kalavanayam Purushaha, in terms. So there is, in some Shastras, they write that up to 8 will be Amsha and Amshamsha. 9 to 15 will be Kala. 16 means Purana. 16. That is why we say Shodasha Kala Purana. So these Amshavataras and Amshamshavataras, it is like half power. It is like Bhagavan is only running on half power or less than half power until then. Kalavataras will be a bit more than that, which is why, as we said, Matsya and Kurma are even bigger avatars. That there is a different, more of Vishnu is present in Matsya and Vishnu is expressed more. The Shakti of Vishnu is expressed more in Matsya and Kurma than it is in maybe Kapila or Pruthu or something like that, or in Kapila or people like that. Then we have Kala Kapila Kurmadhyaha. Then Avesha Bhargavadayaha. So Avesha Avataras are when Bhagavan puts his strength or his Shakti into an individual to complete some superhuman task or some great task, and then pulls it out the second that the task is done. So one example we give in the Shastras is Pruthu Chakravarti. So once after the Bhumi had been ruled by adharmic kings, Bhumi did not want to give them her resources anymore, and so she pulls back all her resources. So then afterwards, Pruthu, on the advice of the Maharshis, decides to make the Bhumi into a cow and milk the earth so that the resources can become manifest again for the purpose of a dharmic kingdom. So in that situation, obviously a king himself cannot do this. So Vishnu enters Pruthu. Pruthum Avivesha, it comes in the Purana. So Vishnu enters Pruthu. Through Pruthu helps him milk the earth and then leaves Pruthu the second that that task is done. So just for that time being, it was the strength of Vishnu that worked through Pruthu. In the same way, Avesha Bhargavadeha Bhrugu, Bhargava, Parashurama. So the Vishnu Tejas was in Parashurama for the sake of getting rid of all those adharmic kshatriyas. But the second that was done, that Tejas of Vishnu came out of Parashurama, which is why we see in Ramayana also, Valmiki Maharshi writes this, that after the Sita Kalyana, once Parashurama and Rama come face to face, as Parashurama gives Rama the Vaishnava Dhanus, a Tejas, Nishchakrama Tatas Tejaha, is what is there in the Ramayana. So a Tejas comes out of Parashurama and enters who is newly Sita Rama, who is Rama, who is newly married to Sita. So there, what has happened is that last remnants of Vishnu in Parashurama have now been transferred to Rama. So from there on, Rama is a Purna Avatara. But Parashurama now is no longer an Avatara of Vishnu. So Sita Kalyana onwards, Parashurama is no longer a Vishnu Avatara, but he is a most respectable Maharshi. That is how we see him in the Mahabharata also, because most of the warriors of the Mahabharata, be it Bhishma, Drona or Karna, are trained by Parashurama. So when Parashurama trains them, staying in that Mahendra Parvata, he is training them as a Maharshi, not as an Avatara of Vishnu. So the example given for this Avesha is Parashurama. Then for Purna, Purno Nrasimho Ramascha Shvetadvipadhipo Harihi. Narasimha, Rama and Krishna. These three are Purna avatars in the sense that Ishwara is manifesting as Ishwara. It is not even a fraction of his capacity. The full force of Paramatma is seen in those avatars, which is why we see in all of those superhuman deeds are done. Narasimha and Krishna, obviously, but even in Rama, we see places that Rama does not do things that just a mere mortal can do. Right? We see him threaten to dry up the entire ocean. Right? The Ahalya Shapa Vimochana, the Shivadhanur Bhanga, these are all things that mortals cannot do, but that Rama has done. So even in Ramavatara, wherein Rama acted as a human, we see that Vishnutva comes through. And also the simple thing being Ravanavada. Although Ravana left out humans and Vanaras in his bone, Ravana is not, weak by any means. It would take a superhuman strength to kill him. And it is that strength that we see in Rama when Rama's Brahmastra finally takes care of Ravana. So these three avatars to us show the full manifestation of Ishvara. And we may also get the doubt, then how are they Purna? Because at least Rama and Krishna, we see an entire lifespan from birth until passing. Narasimha is said to be a Trighatika Avatara, three Ghatikas. That comes out to less than an hour and a half. So how is this a Purna Avatara? It is not the duration of a life that determines the Puranatva of an Avatara, but rather what have they manifested. Narasimha is that Avatara that literally showed that Vishnu is Vishnu. So whatever it was, whatever aspect of Ishvara it is, that Sarvavyapakatva. So whichever entity it is that pervades this entire cosmos came out of that pillar. We cannot say that is a fraction of Ishvara or just a temporary manifestation. If we say that the Sarvavyapaka Ishvara came out of that pillar, it has to be a Purna Avatara. And Narasimha too came with that Shakti. And we get hints of that in the Bhagavata Purana, because when Narasimha comes out, Vyasa Maharshi, when describing that divine form, says Sarva Nijetarayudha Praveka Vidravita Daitya Danavam. He says that Nija Itara Ayudha, the weapons that Narasimha held in his thousands of his hands, those Sahasra Bahus, are Nija and Itara Ayudhas, his own and other Ayudhas. And there in the Vyakhya, Sridhara Swami writes that means Nija means the Ayudhas of Vishnu, Itara means the Ayudhas of other Devatas as well. So whatever Paramatma it is, that is the summation of not just the Devata Vishnu, but also all Devatas. It is that sum total, that Paramatma that pervades the entire cosmos and all these Devatas and all the Panchabhutas and all, that has walked out of that pillar. So for that reason we say that Narasimha is also Purna, because it is Ishvara in his entirety that we can see in that avatar. So, and then later they say Paripurna Tamas Sakshat Shri Krishna Bhagavan Swayam. This Shri Krishna Bhagavan Swayam is a phrase that has become very popular, but that Paripurna Tamas Sakshat. So because as I said, Garga Samhita talks about Krishna as the foremost form, it says Paripurna. But as I said, in Padma Purana and other Puranas, we see that Narasimha, Rama and Krishna, these three are Purna avatars. One more small doubt that people might get is that, is Rama man or God? This became a big controversy during the Janmabhoomi thing and all. So if he is not a human, he cannot kill Ravana, because only a human can kill Ravana. If he is human and not God, then why do we worship him? So first, for this, as we said in the beginning, we started with defining what God is. And as we have seen, Ishwara and being a human or something are not two exclusive things. Rama is as much a man as Matsya is a fish and Kurma is a tortoise. Ishwara has come as a man. That does not mean that he is not Ishwara. It is just that in that the species he was born into was a fish in Matsya Avatara. The species he expressed himself in Kurma Avatara was a tortoise. In Varaha Avatara he expressed himself as a bird. In Rama Avatara he expressed himself as a human. And that's why in Gita also Bhagavan says, Janma karma cha me divyam. My birth and the things I do are divya. You cannot see them only in human terms. Which is why in Ramavatara, from birth itself, we see that Rama was very special. If he was a normal human, first of all, he would have been born the way a normal human is. The normal way, mother, father, baby is born. Rama was not born like that. The payasa had to be brought, Yajna had to give that, then that had to go into Kausalya. And then even when he went into Kausalya, he was in Kausalya for 12 months, not 9. Because as per Shastra, the Jiva stays in the father for 3 months, passes from the father to the mother, stays in the mother for 9 months and then comes out. The gestation period in the father was missed. So to show that this is a gestation period of the Jiva, Rama stayed in Kausalya for 12 months. This is not something that a normal, a test tube baby will not do this. So we see in some places clearly that from birth itself, Rama is divine. And even the way he left his body in Sarayu, he did not die. He left his body in Sarayu and passed on. So, we see clearly that there are hints of Rama's Vishnutva, but he is still a human. So it is that level of perfection that we see in Rama, wherein, despite being Vishnu, he behaved as a perfect human. So is Rama man? Yes. Is he also Ishvara? Yes. These two are not contradictory statements. If you say something is both a cow and a horse, that is not possible, because a cow is different and a horse is different. Gotva is different, Ashratva is different. But human and Ishvara are not contradictory, because Ishvara expresses himself through various things. And forget about, we are still talking about these things. We are talking about Bhagavan in rivers and trees. We worship Ashwatha, we worship Bilva, we worship Gomata, we do Gaja Puja and Ashwa Puja. So when we say that Bhagavan manifests himself in all those ways, it is no long shot to say that Bhagavan also manifests himself as a human. And that to someone like Rama, wherein we, in all these ways, we can see that, there is that aspect of Ishwaratva in him. It is not a stretch to say that Rama is man and Ishvara at the same time.
So, Lalitji, what about Buddha? We hear in some texts that Buddha is an avatar of Vishnu, while in others, Balarama is considered as an avatar of Vishnu. So, which is the right?
Yeah, so we have Puranic evidences for both. So, when talking about the Dashavataras, Matsya Kurma Varahascha, Narasimhascha Vamanaha, Ramo Ramascha Krishna Kalki cha Te Dasha. This is one set of 10 that we have. In another rendition of the same shloka in a different place, we have Ramo Ramascha Buddhascha Krishna Kalki cha Te Dasha. And depending on the bhakta, in some places, we see that even Krishna is left out sometimes. So in the famous Mangalacharana of the Jayadeva Ashtapadi, the 10 avatars, he keeps Balarama and Buddha and does not even put Krishna. He says, Dashakriti Krite Krishnaya. He says, Namaste to you, O Krishna, who has taken upon these 10 avatars. So this is one interesting point to note. The other thing is, Buddha is very much an avatar of Vishnu. There is no denying that at all. One more thing though that you have to see is, so then who is this Buddha? Buddha is an avatar of Vishnu. Who is this Buddha? So is he the Buddha from that 500 BC, that around that period? Or is it something else? We see many stories of Buddha in the Puranas. There is one story wherein Shiva wishes to kill the Tripurasuras, but the Tripurasuras are following great dharma. They do many pujas and all, and they're protected by the virtue of those austerities. So then Vishnu goes as a mendicant, tells them, hey, no Veda, nothing. There is no Paraloka, there is no Punya, Papa, there is no God, there is no Veda, nothing. You let go of all of this, just be happy. And then they listen to him, stop doing all of that, and then they lose all their virtuous Shakti, and then Shiva takes care of them, he kills them. And then in another place, we see many places it is like this. One place, the Devatas get defeated by the Rakshasas, and the Rakshasas are now, in power. So then they ask Vishnu, Then again Vishnu goes as the same mendicant who is named Buddha, that goes, preaches these Avaidika dharmas to the Rakshasas, not even Avaidika, but just tells them that Vaidika dharma is not a pramana, Veda is not a pramana, don't worry about what Veda says. Makes them stop doing that so that they lose the effect of those austerities, and then allow them to become weak so that the Devatas can then win. Which is why we see in one place that Vishnu gives the Devatas, assurance that he will take Avatara, and he tells them why. He says, Vaidikam vidhim ashritya triloki paripīdakan chalena mohayishyami buddho bhutva asuran aham. So those asuras who are triloki paripīdakan, those who torment the three worlds, Vaidikam vidhim ashritya, using Vedic rituals to draw power and using that to torment the worlds. Whoever it is that acts like that, those tan asuran, chalena, through deception, buddho bhutva, having becoming Buddha, mohayishyami, I will delude them. This is what Bhagavan has said. So clearly why he is becoming Buddha and for whom he is becoming Buddha, Bhagavan has told. Those people who misuse Vedic rites to torment other people or to secure adharmic means. Whoever those people are, Rakshasas, Asuras, or people with asuric tendencies, to suppress them, I will become Buddha, pull their mind away from the Vedas so that they no longer believe in the Vedas and thereby will not do those things and gain power from them, and thereby the world will be safe. So for that purpose, as Buddha, I will incarnate. So in the Puranas, it is very clear who Buddha is. And there is one more thing, that in the Puranas also we find shlokas to Buddha. We do not worship him perhaps the way we worship Rama and Krishna, but there are namaskaras to Buddha also in Puranas that we find. So there is a very famous kavacha in Bhagavata called the Narayana kavacha. It is a very efficacious kavacha, in that all the various forms of Bhagavan and all the protections that they give are enumerated. So for example, we ask that Varaha protect us in forests and things, that Narasimha protect us in war, that Vamana protect us on land, that Matsya protect us in water. So all the various forms, it is a kavacha. The kavacha asks for protection. So in this, all the different forms of Vishnu, we are asking for protection from different things. So in this sequence of the Narayana kavacha, we find prayers to all forms of Vishnu as well as what we want those forms to protect us from. So in that we get Dvaipayano Bhagavan Aprabodhat Buddhopi Pakhandaganat Pramadat. We get this statement there. So what this means is, we pray to Vyasa Maharshi, also a form of Vishnu, to protect us from aprabodha, ignorance. So when you are taught something, you want to be able to understand it. We pray to Vyasa to protect us from that inability of not understanding what is taught. Because Vyasa is a Jnana Avatara. That is why we get Jnana Shakti Avataraya Namo Bhagavato Harehe. Brahmasutra Krite Tasmai Veda Vyasaya Vedhase Jnana Shakti Avataraya Namo Bhagavato Harehe. This is one Dhyana Shloka that is told to Vyasa Maharshi. So he is the Jnana Shakti Avatara. He is the Avatara of Vishnu as a Guru. So we pray to him to protect us from not knowing something or the inability to learn. We ask that he protect us from that we do not have that by his grace. Then we pray to Buddha. What do we pray to Buddha as? Buddhopi Pakhandaganat Pramadat. Pramada means inattentiveness or not being sharp with what you know. We pray to Buddha to protect us from the Pakhandas. Pakhandas means Avaidika matas. We pray to Buddha to protect us from these Nastika matas and to protect us from the inattentiveness towards our Vedic duties, So it is because he is meant to delude the adharmic people that abuse dharma that we say, we pray that you delude only them and that you do not have your effect on me. We pray that whoever Nastikas may be, that you are taking care of, I do not have any problem from them. And also that pramada, whatever inattentiveness that you are able to generate in them towards the Vedic dharma. Because how does Buddha get them out? He tells them that there is no need to have Shraddha in Veda. And they listen to that. So we pray that Ashraddha not be there in us, that pramada, that inattentiveness or that negligence towards Veda should not be there in us. And the Nastikas that you have made, that they do not trouble us, or that we are not touched by the influence of your teachings to be Nastika, that we remain Dharmikas and Astikas. So we still pray to Buddha, but we ask this. So Buddha is very much an avatar of Vishnu, and he is also worshipped in a limited capacity. But he is an avatar of Vishnu, and Bhagavan has told the point of the Avatara. Whether that Avatara is this Buddha or not is up to the reader's interpretation.
Thank you, Lalithaditya. I think you have answered many questions that youngsters have today about Sanatana Dharma and the avatars of Lord Vishnu. Thank you once again. This session has been extremely insightful, and I'm sure a whole new world of truth has opened up to our viewers. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. We'll continue our session in the next episode, where we dwell more upon the different sects of Hinduism and their devatas and modes of worship. Thank you. Namaste.